This morning, we are honored to hear from Dr. David Batstone, Professor of Ethics, best-selling author, award-winning journalist, and international advocate for justice. Dr. Batstone teaches full-time at the University of San Francisco, writes regularly for newspapers and magazines across the globe, and speaks internationally on a wide range of topics. He's inspired a great many individuals, from U2's Bono, who calls him a heroic character, to our own media production manager, Anita Coco, who advises Gordon's student chapter of the campaign, Not for Sale campaign. Anita describes Dr. Batstone as a compassionate daredevil, a fearless risk-taker with a burning compassion for the oppressed. And I can tell you he's a daredevil. He flew in here this morning just before commencement to be with you. And I had to have a backup ready to step up and give the commencement address if the plane was late. So we are very happy to see him. A graduate of our sister school, Westmont College, Dr. Batstone has cared deeply about ethics and justice for over 25 years. His book, Saving the Corporate Soul, and, who knows, maybe your own, won the Nautilus Award in 2004 for Best Business Book. Considered a leading authority on business ethics, he has appeared on CBS Nightly News, CNN, NPR, and NBC. His work with the Not for Sale campaign has launched a whole new movement of compassion, and his book, Not for Sale, The Return of the Global Slave Trade and How We Can Fight It, is inspiring modern-day abolitionists to free the 27 million people enslaved today around the world. 2 years ago, when Dr. Batstone spoke in chapel on the international tragedy of human trafficking, he told our students that he believes, quote, yours will be the generation to end slavery. His personal stories, his passionate faith, and his tireless work in the Not for Sale campaign challenged our students then, and they clamored for his return today as their commencement speaker. It is truly a privilege to have him with us. Please join me in welcoming Dr. David Batstone.
First, I must say it's a real honor to be here at Gordon College at the commencement address, and I do thank the class of 2009 for choosing the short straw that had my name on it. I appreciate that. You know, I was thinking about what makes a successful commencement address. What do people say later? How was the commencement address? And I think the common thread is it was short. I mean, so unless I really blow it here and get on a roll, I think I can probably get you to the place where you're getting your degree and you're out with your family having a great party. But I do want to have you just sit for a second and listen, hear a few things. One thing that you do today, in fact, has nothing to do with my commencement address. Class of 2009. As a professor at the University of San Francisco, I run my students through an exercise that I ask them to think back 3 generations and call home and find out what happened. 3 generations that got them into my class. Now, it's a very specialized class on justice, global justice. So why would you take this class? Why would you spend a year living together and working together in a very arduous program? What got you here? And they're surprised to learn the choices people made, their parents, their grandparents, the historical events that could have gone one way but went another, that led them to this class. So today, what got you here? What people sacrificed, what individuals in your life gave you this opportunity? And then please say thank you to them today. Tell them thanks. A professor, that is what I am, but I feel like I'm a tripolar personality. You've heard of bipolar people? I've always felt like I was tripolar because I love being an entrepreneur in business, and then I also love writing. Publicly addressing issues are important to us. So those 3 things have always kind of been concurrent in my life. And I always wondered why God was somehow bringing opportunities to me that would moved me to embrace those three aspects of a vocation. And it wasn't until I was in my favorite restaurant in the San Francisco Bay Area, went there regularly, every couple of weeks, and I discovered that my favorite restaurant was the center of a human trafficking ring that had brought over 500 young kids from India, teenagers, forced to work in a restaurant first, and then taken to the fruit and vegetable fields of California, taken to change bed sheets in hotels, work in construction crews, or end up in a brothel, in the commercial sex industry. Over 500 young kids through one local restaurant. And it was a calling for me. And it, in a sense, brought together these disparate vocations, because slavery is an economic issue. It requires an entrepreneurial response. Slavery is a moral, cultural issue. It requires education. And slavery is a social issue. We have to reframe our society about what it means to be a human being with value and not for sale. Now, I did not go looking for slavery. I did not go looking for my vocation, per se. It came and found me. And one thing I want to share with the class of 2009 is that you do not need to go out and find the answer to your life. The strange thing is that God brings the question to you. It's just whether we are listening. Whether we are listening to that voice, and when it comes, sometimes in a way that we never expect it, in a human that we never expect it, in an event we never expect. It's not, does meaning come to me? How do I respond to that meaning? It is not, how do you find the meaning for my life? It's how do you answer the question that's been given to you? All of you have been given a question. Now, you'll read the newspaper like I have. New York Times will say, what a terrible time to be graduating. There's no jobs out there. But again, it's the wrong frame, particularly for a group of people who have gone to a liberal arts college that is passionately Christian. Because it is an ideal time for us to graduate, because at what time has the world needed a group of bright, passionate, committed individuals to bring about change? It's a brilliant time to graduate. Your question should not be, well, will I be needed out there? There is a world in need that needs you. Of course, the challenge is whether you see your contribution, your education, what you've been given as a gift, as something to be shared with others. From my restaurant in San Francisco, I went around the globe to understand how human trafficking could work in 2007, 2008, the 21st century. How could there be a global slave trade? I went to every continent, met the victims, tried to track down the traffickers, and come up with solutions about how this could actually end. One of my journeys took me to Peru, where I met Lucy Borja. Lucy also did not go out looking for her life vocation. It came and found her in the presence of two children who were living on the streets of Lima. They had been brought from the Andes into Lima so that they could be the destination for sexual tourists. Men would come from all over the world to take advantage of them. And these two little kids had escaped and they were living on the streets, along with hundreds of other kids around Lima, the street kids of Lima. And they expressed to Lucy Borja that they were scared to go home back to the park where they were sleeping, because the traffickers would be looking for them and the police would be in collusion with them, would get a reward if they returned a child to the trafficker. So Lucy took out of her pocket two of the cards of her office where she worked, said, listen, if you're scared to sleep in the park tonight, just go to my office and sleep there. And if you have any other friends that you meet that are in a similar situation, tell them that they can sleep with you as well in my office. So Lucy had a family birthday party that night, so she went out with her sons, and then on their way home, as she's driving back to the house, she said, you know, we should stop by to make sure those two little boys got into the office. So they stopped by the office, and her sons went with her, and they tried to open the door, and Lucy couldn't push the door open. There's like a roll of carpet behind the door. And so she got her sons to help her just enough so Lucy could get her body inside and turn the light on. And she looked around the office. She saw little boys and girls like sardines crammed into her office, over 600 young kids. The word had spread through the streets of Lima that there was a safe haven. Lucy said, you know, I found my call. I found my call. I don't know what God has in store for you. I don't know what God has in store for you, but I do know that we are all called to a great purpose. And being students of liberal arts, students who have learned to learn with critical intelligence, there's a world out there that is crying for your skills, crying for your passion, crying for your dedication. It necessarily won't take you to Peru, nor will it take you to fight human trafficking. It may take you to a new way of doing business. You know, business is in a funk as well recently. I study business, and I've been writing about business for a long time. Part of the problem with business is that it's come down to a single number, that is a profitable return, as the only measure of whether there's success. Oftentimes, and all too often, a budget for a company is made first by deciding what the number has to be, and then what we have to do to get to that number. What would it look like to actually fix a customer problem? What would it look like to come up with an innovative solution? What would that look like for a liberal arts student to deploy all the things that they've learned to come up with innovation? Gun Denhart grew up in Sweden. She came to this country as a young woman. She married an advertising executive in New York. They lived there and had several children. They had 5 children. And she raised them, and one thing that concerned her as she was growing up is that she couldn't find 100% cotton clothes that were trendy, that she liked to put on her kids. So she decided that she would take that opportunity to create a company called Hannah Anderson Clothes. She and her husband moved out of New York, because who can afford to live in New York? They moved to Portland, and there in their living room, they cut little 1-inch squares of cotton, 100% cotton, bright colors, really gorgeous clothing, but 100% cotton square, put it on a postcard, and they sent out 70,000 postcards. Well, that didn't really get the business that they were hoping to get. It wasn't an innovative enough business model. So then they began to think, well, what promise could we make to customers? What could we say to them that would engage them? How could we think creatively about solving their problem? Well, most parents would like to see that their kids are clothed in a way that is healthy for them, and also that they don't have to go down every 6 weeks and buy another pair of clothes. So they made a promise: our clothes will be durable and outlast your kids, and they'll love it. They'll look great in it. We are so convinced of that, in their second marketing plan, they came up with the idea that your kids will so outgrow our clothes before it wears out. We promise you that you can send your clothes back to us, and we'll give you a 25% discount on another purchase. They call them hand-me-downs or Hana-downs. So all these clothes started coming in. Now, Gun didn't think about the fact that what she was going to do with all these clothes people were returning. She had 1 million pieces of items now in her garage and in her backyard and in her house. She had all this hand-me-downs that people had sent back. So She began looking in Portland for those shelters who could use the clothes, started delivering them to the clothes to the kids in those shelters. And Goon said, that's when I began to learn about the needs of the world around me, not just my customers. And she then went to Seattle and found homeless shelters there where they could use the clothes. And then she went to San Francisco, went to Los Angeles, and then she started moving her way across the country. And her passion became not only providing quality clothes for families could afford them, but also providing clothes for those who had no means to buy them. Hannah Anderson Clothes for the customer then became something more than simply a quality product, but a cause that people could believe in. A cause that they could believe in. And Hannah Anderson Clothes became a wildly successful business. Goon Denhart eventually left the CEO role and started a foundation for troubled kids across the United States. That's using innovation. That's using scalability, and that is using sustainability. See, what you're faced with is not only a world in need, but your financial challenges. I'm sure many of you would love tomorrow to spend full time going to Cambodia or going to Ghana, but you say, but how would I sustain myself? And if you don't ask that question, I'm sure your parents will help you ask that question. We need a smart generation and a just generation. And not for sale. I have a certain criteria for every new program we put in place. How are we going to pay for this within the next 18 months? Will it be sustainable? If we can't do it that way, then let's not do it. So how do you create innovation and sustainability that begins to address the needs of the world? This is the challenge of your generation. Because we need a generation of justice. I'm going to Uganda tomorrow, and there it's young children who've been abducted by an army called the Lord's Resistance Army, and these kids are now getting out. What happens to these tens of thousands of kids? What do they do with their life? How do they build a new future? The models we have are broken. The models we have, the economic models, the cultural models are broken. That's why we need your generation, a generation of justice. You know, I'm on the tail end of the boomer generation. After me was Generation X. And after that was Generation Y, then the millennials, and then I don't know what you are, but I say before you get named, name yourself a generation of justice. Generation J. That's the call. You don't need to go out looking for meaning. It's been brought to you. Look at the world around you. It's been brought to you. The challenge is how do I answer the call? Many are called, but few answer. Many are called. So how will you answer? The great challenges out there, a broken economy, a broken global environment, a broken world of poverty. It needs your ingenuity, but it needs it beyond myself. But what can I do for the world? What can I bring to the world? When I was sitting at chapel at Westmont College all those years, we would have speakers come and they would talk about, some of you will be called to missions. And I was so relieved because I could never see myself being a missionary. Thank goodness I'm going into law and I don't have to worry about that call because this sounds pretty tough. Of course, what I didn't really appreciate was the fact that I'm a part of a community of believers. All of us are called. What is your mission is the question, not do you have a mission? What is your mission? Because there is a world that needs entrepreneurs. There is a world that needs healthcare workers. There's a need that needs teachers. We need researchers. We need people who will use their skills to bring about a global revolution of love and justice. So how are you called? And how will you answer? one of my favorite entrepreneurs that I've had the occasion to work with is a guy named Iqbal Kadur. He's down in Harvard. Iqbal is from the country of Bangladesh. And he was a lucky individual who was able to get out of Bangladesh, go to a major university, and become a Wall Street broker. He was on Wall Street several years ago, and there was a power outage in New York, as happens from time to time, and his communication system went down. He couldn't do any trading over the computer. And he said he was really frustrated, but he said more frustrated than you would think. It was beyond normal. And he said, why am I feeling so depressed about this? It came to him that the fact that he could not communicate, he couldn't do anything, feeling helpless, reminded him of a time when he was back in Bangladesh. He was 9 years old. He was the oldest of 6 siblings, and his mother told him to go down to a village, a half-day's walk, to get some medicine for the younger kids who were sick. So he went out, walked all the way to this village. When he got there, the guy who's in charge of the medicine at the village was gone for the day. So he turned around and had to walk all the other half of the day back to his home village and tell his mother there was no medicine. And so he's sitting there as a Wall Street broker without the ability to communicate, and he said, you know, when there is no potential for communication, it breaks down the opportunity to develop and grow. So there he took out a piece of paper at his desk on Wall Street, and he started to draw a business plan for a communications, a cellular company in Bangladesh. Everyone said he's crazy. No one's going to buy cell phones in Bangladesh. Well, he went back home and started Grameen Telephone. And what he did is he was very innovative. He took these little cell phones to a village where there were no phones, and he started a phone company. You know how you start a phone company? You give one phone to one individual and tell them to charge 3 cents for a call. And everybody in the village comes and have 3 cents. He started thousands of phone companies with one cell phone each village. At the end of year 1, he had a $25 million profit, and he had created 17,000 entrepreneurs who had their own phone company. That's innovation. That is sustainability. You see, as business people, we think about how we can market more products to those people who already have them. There are billions of people who are beyond our economy. Imagine if you used your innovation as an entrepreneur to create business models that would lift them up at the same time generate new economy. Imagine the systemic implications of that for health and education. It's a world of need you're going into. You are graduating at the perfect time. You're graduating at the perfect time. You're graduating with the perfect education. Imagine if you had gone to a school that all you studied was engineering. They're lost. You've learned that you've got to take the skills that you had so you can apply them to learn something new tomorrow. And then maybe something else new because you're entering a world that changes rapidly. But that perfectly places you to address the needs of a world that's crying out for a future. So today, as we wait, thank those who have got you here. Keep open to what God's going to bring into your life. And as you pray, listen more, talk less. And above all, face the future with great expectation and hope of the destiny that's been handed to you. Thank you very much.